Guys, I have figured it out, and believe me, it has been difficult to make deck types for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Genesis format as a person who is not that familiar with the modern game. Today, I'm going to be walking you through my deck profile for the Skull Servant archetype in the Genesis format. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels. So, if you happen to be new here, okay, something that we oftentimes talk about on this channel, and I have a whole series dedicated to it, is I'm an old player. I have played competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Most of my entire life. I quit around the Pendulum and Lynx era, and there are so many cards and so many archetypes that I'm not familiar with, so I've been struggling to play the game at times. I think I cracked the code on Skull Servants a little bit. I have looked up a bunch of other people, like, you know, just posting their decks online. There's a couple strategies, like one in particular, we go into Super Polymerization. I was like, ooh, that's a really good idea. But I've play tested this a ton, and this deck works. It works because I am consistently winning with it, which is really cool to see because I have to spend time like, what are you playing right now? What are you doing? So I am nowhere near a competitive player. I'm somebody who enjoys to play the game. So if you are knowledgeable about this game, and if you're somebody who watches a lot of content, a lot of deck profiles, this isn't me walking you through, hey, this is what you need to use competitively. I found something that works. I think it is a good deck. I know it's a good deck, but I'm always open for feedback. I would love to perfect this. So if you're somebody who is involved with this game, you might have more knowledge than me. If there's anything you don't think you should be in here, please let me know. If there's anything that you think that I should playtest, I'd be happy to. Comment down below, guys. Apologies for that long intro. Let's walk you through the deck list, okay? Starting off with, of course, 2 copies of Skull Servant, 2 copies of Lady in Right, okay? I know a lot of people play 3. Back in the day, and I've been a big Skull Servant player my entire life. Historically, I'd run 3 of these. I found them to be too bricky, and I found, while we're going to talk about white prints, having 2 copies of each is more than enough, especially with the support that the Skull Servants have come out with. I'm totally okay with 2. I found 3 to be a little too bricky. Maybe 3 Lady in White. Maybe. But I think that 2 is the absolute perfect number, okay? Let's continue on over to Mizuki and Mulk Army. Walos, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that card wrong, but this is one that I found that worked, and I playtested both of these with 3 copies. I think 2's the sweet spot for the Mulk Army card. Sometimes I drew into it and didn't want to use it. Sometimes I didn't need it. This is a good card to draw off the first turn, and there's quite a few times where you find yourself with no cards on your field, so this card's definitely helpful. You end up drawing a lot of cards, and what I found is a lot of people just special summon and use their turn anyways. I think 2 is a sweet spot for that. Mizuki, I've been playing with 3, 2, 1, and none. 1 and none is where I'm at, but I do like having the odd copy Mizuki. Having something like, if there's nothing else for a Uni-Zombie target, which we're going to get into Uni-Zombie a little bit, we have enough special summoning cards from the graveyard where I don't really think that Mizuki is necessary. So as I continue playing with this deck, I might just end up scrapping Mizuki because, again, I played with 3, 2, 1, 0. I don't mind Mizuki at 0. I don't mind Mizuki at 1. Okay? Right now, I'm playing with it at 1. I like to have it every once in a while. It can come in handy, but it's not a card that I use all that much. Let's continue on over to 3 copies of Uni-Zombie. You have the tuner in the deck. You can automatically send cards from your hand to the graveyard. You can send Skull Servants from the deck of the graveyard, and it opens up a ton of synchro option plays. This is, in my opinion, a must at 3. It is an excellent card. I've always loved Uni-Zombie, and I'm going to continue to love it, guys. Let's continue on over to 3 copies of White Baking. I've seen a lot of Skull Servants decks where they use 2 copies of this. I think this is a must at 3. I would not even consider using less copies than 3 of this. I love the fact that you have the built-in control with it, but if you... I end up searching this card a lot. You get it into your hand, you discard it, you get whatever Skull Servant that you want, you get another card to the graveyard. It's an easy way to get white prints in the graveyard. Guys, I think this is an excellent card. 3 copies, for me, I don't ever see myself changing that a little bit. I've seen people using this at 2 copies a lot. People talking about 3 copies being too much. Give me 3 of these bad boys. Let's continue on over to some of the new support that I actually wasn't too familiar with, okay? Mosiah White. This is a phenomenal card. This is some of the best support that you could have for the Skull Servants, okay? Of course, I don't know, and I'm always looking to improve these videos. You guys want me to walk through the effects of every card? Please let me know down below, but I love the fact that you have 2 effects. I didn't expect to use this as much as I was actually using it. I started off with 3 because I thought it was just a good card reading it, and I didn't even think about switching it. This thing at 3, phenomenal. You get a search for, and shockingly, I've used this normal summoning effect a bunch of times too. Excellent card. I love Mosiah White. It is very, very good. Now let's continue on over to White Mare and 3 copies of White Lord. White Mare, I think 3 is too much. I've played with 2, and if you want 2 in your deck, I wouldn't argue with that. I think it's a good card. The sweet spot for me seems to be at 1. When you start banishing, you need to strategically banish some of your zombie cards. Plus, every once in a while, you have an opponent banish one of your Skull Servants or King of the Skull Servants, Ladies in White, things like that. I will usually try to target, if I'm banishing something, to get one of the Skull Servants or like the Lady in White or the King of the Skull Servants over in the banish zone. So I can have, if I have this thing, then it's pretty easy. I can just get it. I can end up special summoning it, but you can also discard it, just have the other effect right there. I love White Lord though. Man, does this thing pile up cards in the graveyard. These are the types of cards that Skull Servants have needed for a very, very long time. You discard it, depending on what point you're at in the game, you mill a bunch of cards. Your King of the Skull Servants automatically turns into like 10,000 attack, and then you could just do special summon as King of the Skull Servants from your graveyard. This is another phenomenal support card for the Skull Servants. 3 copies of White Lord. That one's non-negotiable in my opinion. White Lord is excellent. Now, I'd love to know what you guys think about this one, okay? Apologies for the weird picture over here. It was oddly difficult to find a PNG of White Prince, okay? White Prince, one of the saviors of the deck, one of the best support pieces. You send it to the graveyard, and automatically, you take out the Skull Servant, you take out the Lady in White. I've seen people running 2 copies of this if they're running 2 copies of Lady in White and regular Skull Servant, excuse me. But I want as quick access to White Prince as I could possibly get. Plus, you banish it. I don't use that secondary effect all that much, but it can come in handy depending on how many Skull Servants that you have in the graveyard. I want access to this as quick as possible. I like it at 3. Treeborn Frog. I don't really imagine most people will play for Treeborn Frog in a Skull Servant deck. First of all, always left Treeborn Frog, okay? But this thing's come in handy. Usually, and I'm going to walk you through the spells and the trap. I don't think I'm running any traps in this deck. I don't know why I can't think about it off the top of my head. Usually, there's nothing in your spell and trap card zone. So you'll special summon Treeborn Frog. First of all, it's another monster. You can get an XYZ for a rank 1 monster. And if you happen to have Uni-Zombie, can come in handy with a Synchro Summon as well. Or I think it's good to just have around. Especially because your background's usually not there. I found Treeborn Frog to be shockingly helpful, and it's going to remain in this deck. Let's continue on over to the next cards over here. Of course, the main monster of the deck, the King of the Skull Servants, 3 copies of that. The amount of times I've racked this thing up to like 10,000 attack, 12,000 attack is incredible to me. It's one of my favorite cards to ever play, one of my favorite deck archetypes to ever play. This is a must at 3 in my opinion. Now, let's get into the spell cards, okay? Starting off, we have 1 copy of Allure Darkness, 1 copy of Galaxy Cyclone. I've played without Galaxy Cyclone, but I found it to be more helpful than not. If you just draw it, then you can pop a spell or trap card. Very nice. But I'm thinking about all the times that you're milling with White Lord, and Galaxy Cyclones ended up in my graveyard quite a bit. And it's come in handy with things like field spells, continuous spells. I like having it more than I don't. Do I always use it? No. But I like having it in my deck. Allure Darkness, you have a dark deck. Depending on what you're banishing, you can use it strategically. I think it's a very good card. I like it for the draw power. Okay, let's continue on to Rank Up Magic, the 7th one, the Graceful Charity. I would totally understand if you were to sit here and tell me to get rid of Rank Up Magic. 1000%. But I draw it enough to the point where I use number 107 and number C107. Just the fact that you can get that giant behemoth of a monster just for drawing 1 card, I'll take the brick every once in a while. Plus, there's a lot of times where you find yourself discarding cards. It ends up being a brick at points, but I think the pros outweigh the cons for this one. I love just getting that free monster, and I love the effect of that monster. Graceful Charity uses a ton of points. I had points to spare. There were a couple things that I was playing around with points, but I like just drawing 3 cards and discarding 2 cards, and then there's a lot of times where you discard the Skull Servant monsters just to get the Skull Servant's effect. I think this is a very helpful card. I use it over Pot of Greed. I use it over a lot of things that cost points when it comes to draw power. For this deck type specifically, I like Graceful Charity's specific effect. Let's continue on with the next cards over here. 3 copies of Curse of the Ancient Turtle. I found a lot of times that it was very easy for me to just have a zombie monster to banish. And whether or not you want to use that strategically with getting rid of the King of the Skull Servants or a Lady in White, you can immediately get a White Prince to the graveyard. Or if you want something else in particular in your graveyard, that's helpful too. And You just banish it and go, hey, I feel like summoning my King of the Skull Servants now. Excellent card. You must have this thing at 3 in my opinion. This is a savior of a card a lot of times. Now, this wasn't my own thought for this deck. I've seen a lot of people mix in these fusion cards, and I love it. 3 copies of Super Polymerization. We're going to get into the fusion monsters that we're using. But man, I think this is great. I think this is a great addition to the deck. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but at 3 copies of Super Polymerization, I like it at the number. And finally, we have 3 copies of a continuous spell, White Reminator. Now, I know the Treeborn Frog could come into an issue with this, but so what? My Treeborn Frog's in my graveyard. I don't care. It's a level 1 monster. I found it more useful than not. So if you're going to comment down below, tell me to take out Treeborn Frog, I understand where you're coming from. I just found it to be helpful, okay? First off, if you happen to have a King of the Skull Servants, you can get an OTK and a defense position monster, and you get a monster reborn for, hey, let's send another zombie to the graveyard. This is a great card. Another one that is a must at 3 in my opinion. It is majorly helpful for the deck. And here's another thing that's going to get in the way with Treeborn Frog, okay? I've talked about these being staples in all of my decks. 1 copy of Moon Mirror Shield, 2 copies of Dark Sanctuary. Moon Mirror Shield comes into clutch so much. You can summon the regular Skull Servant, equip this bad boy to it. The monsters that you can just get over. It is incredible. I love this card so much. Same with Dark Sanctuary. Just to block like half of your opponent's attack and then deal damage to your opponent, that becomes like an instant, okay, I know that he has King of the Skull Servants, I know that he has his XYZ monster out, I need to get rid of Dark Sanctuary right now. The amount of comments that I always get to, and I've talked about this in other videos, where people just go, I can't believe I'm losing because of Dark Sanctuary. Like, who the hell runs that card? I'm running these in every deck. Love these cards. I have played with Dark Sanctuary at 3 too, but 2 seems to be the sweet spot. They're just majorly helpful cards. Let's continue on. Oh, yes, I forgot about this. I did have 1 trap card in the deck, and that's Gravity Bind. I know that we live in a time where, or we're playing in a time where XYZ monsters, especially in this format, a lot of people are using it. Yeah, they're not affected by Gravity Bind, but it comes in handy. It comes in handy where it's just your opponent, like depending on the deck that you're playing against, I think it's good enough to be in the main deck. 1 copy. This one I'm still playtesting, I can do without, but so far, I found it to be helpful. So that is the entire deck list for you. There are extra deck monsters that I wanted to take a look at. The targets for Super Polymerization: Drago Necro, Nether Soul Dragon, and Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. I love Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. I love both these cards. I would have never thought to like use these in my Skull Servant deck because I'm somebody who would be like, you know what? Mass Change 2, Dark Law. Obviously, we can't do that. This is arguably a better thing. I love using my opponent's monsters, and it's been shockingly easy to have some nice dark targets to use. There are more than just these 2 over here, guys. We have Predaplant, Drago Staptelia, and Garora, Wings of the Resonant Life. These are, obviously you can't really get Predaplant out all that easy, but it definitely can happen. But the Garura card, it just use your opponent's monsters, and it's like, hey, here's my big monster now. It's a great strategy. It works great with the Dark World deck. And we do have 1 more, Mud Dragon of the Swamp. And moving on to the Synchro Monsters. I wasn't familiar with this card until I looked up a bunch of decks. And so many people are running this card. And I'm like, oh my god, this is an excellent card. And with Unizombie, you can play around with the levels so much. This thing's great. The effect is great. I rarely summon it, but I think it's worth having into the deck over here, too. And I forgot to mention, too, with the Mud Dragon of the Swamp over here, the effect shockingly comes in handy. I've used all of the fusion cards. I used this card, the Jura Shin Synchro Monster. Never heard of it before, but I think it's a very good card. Next up, Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord, Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. I love Bryanak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. I love returning cards to the hand. This thing comes in clutch a lot of times. And Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord is just another one of those, like, really good zombie synchro monsters. One thing that I have struggled with in this deck is deciding what synchro or fusion monster that I've wanted to summon out because there are so many options over here. For the XYZ monsters, number 107, number C107, the rank up magic target, the fact that I can get this thing out on draw, I include rank up magic, the 7th one, in most of my decks, and these things are very, very nice to have. Let's continue on. I will always run this as well. Number 101, Silent Honor Arc. It comes in handy just all too much. If there's a card that's difficult to get by, if there's a card that can't be destroyed by battle, I'll take it as a material. It has the built-in self-protection. You don't summon it all that much because a lot of your monsters are 1-stars, but it does happen. It's worth having in the deck, okay? Let's continue on to level 1s over here, or excuse me, rank 1s. Baby Trigon and Ripplebird. It basically just opens up the idea for OTKs. Usually I'll target a Synchro, but I've only summoned these cards a handful of time, but again, I do think that they're worth having. So, that's the extra deck. That's the main deck. There are a few other cards that I have playtested with so far. They're not in my deck, but I wanted to talk about them throughout this as well because I found a little bit of success with them, okay? So we have a couple possible additions over here. We have the Shiranui Solitaire. I'm not too sure how to pronounce that. It's come in handy. It's come in handy, but the thing is, it's a good card, but I've done perfectly well without it. It's never really been a brick. It's just, I kind of, at points, I don't want to say it's unnecessary. That's a problem because it's a good card. It's just my deck's fine without it, you know? Gozuki, the mill effect is pretty useful, but again, I have enough cards that already send Skull Servant cards to the graveyard. I haven't really found that one too helpful. Also, White Princess. A lot of people run White Princess. Never found it all that helpful. All of the other Skull Servant cards are great. It's an okay card, and if you want it in your deck, that's great. It's a good card, okay? The effect can come in handy. I just like all of the other cards better than that. And Swords of Concealing Light. This, depending if you can get the right cards out at the right time, it could open up for an OTK, but I think the XYZ monsters kind of cover that a little bit. It's just, I wouldn't mind using that card, okay? I've played around with it. It's been okay, but ultimately, they are not in my deck. Finally, enemy controller creature swap. You give your opponents useless monsters. Enemy controller, I run Treeborn Frog over here. Treeborn Frog is very helpful with enemy controller, and taking your opponent's monsters are always really fun. I playtested these as well. They've been helpful, but as of right now, I'm not using them in the deck either, guys. And if you would like to continue talking about deck profiles, why don't you check out this video on screen right here. I'd love to have you over there. Thank you very, very, very much for being here, everybody. Take care, guys.